violence. Until my visit, Vietnam was a name on a map or a film of Marines jumping out of a helicopter on the television news. I felt sympathy, but I only saw it symbolically and made symbolic drawings. The reality was far different. Vietnam was a beautiful country with gentle people who, like most civilians in wartime, were confused and frightened. They didn't want to die, and they didn't want a war. And I also realized for the first time that apart from the tough professionals, most of the soldiers didn't want one either. Most of them seemed to be young college kids hoiked out of their studies, flown to some strange jungle, given guns and told to go out and kill gooks, as they contemptuously called the Vietnamese. I arrived at a camp in the jungle. Everything was in disarray. I was told by a tough sergeant that the previous day one of their platoons had been surrounded by the Viet Cong. They had radioed for help and were told that an airstrike would be carried out if they gave their precise position. The surrounded soldiers radioed that they were pinned down in a circle about a quarter of a mile wide. The pilot misheard the instructions and dropped napalm inside the circle, killing and maiming his own men. As the sergeant told me this story, a few bewildered survivors of the disaster were still wandering back. Others had deserted. Rain splattered off the tin roof as I made this drawing of one of the young soldiers, who sat silently on his bunk next to the boots and rifle of his dead buddy. And it had never struck me before that when anybody dies in war, that they don't fall over in one piece like John Wayne. And the whole morgue was full of bits of bodies, torsos, legs, half bodies. And for the first time in my life, I just could not draw what I saw. It had been perfectly all right for me to make these things up symbolically and draw them from my imagination, but when I saw the reality of this carnage, I just could not put my pencil on the paper.
I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Lord knows I love you anyhow. And I don't care if you don't want me, because I'm yours.
If people think that I'm an unpleasant character, maybe I am. It is a strange and nasty job that I do. And it does deal with the black side of life, and it does deal with pessimism. It doesn't mean that I'm not a romantic. I am a romantic. And it's the distance between the romance that I want to see and the reality that I know is there that I'm drawing all the time. It's that gap. There's this side of me that has to, or has been forced into being honest about mankind, about people, about all of us, and the other side that socially wants to be accepted.
The drawings that I do are done in an isolated place, away from these people. I never really think of them, looking at them, or being affected by them even. It's just my statement about that person. And I remember once Jane and I went to Kensington Palace for dinner with Princess Margaret. And it was a very nice evening, really, but I felt slightly embarrassed as I'd drawn her as a warthog. At that moment, I probably would have tried to explain it away, tried to lessen the pain, tried to lie about it, really, to say that it was not really meant, it's just a joke. But one has to live at a different level. I have to live outside my work, as I say. I can't... I like living a civilized life.
My wife points out that when I go to a party or to a dinner anywhere, I do pass comments about the people there as to the way they looked like this or they behaved like that, which she doesn't.
What good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play. Life is a cabaret, old chum.
Strange enough, they're the overtly sexual drawings I worry about my children seeing. Those of violence
extreme violence, I don't worry about so much. But it's just because, I suppose, I'm a prude of some sort, that I worry about the sexual side of my drawings being seen. I could be shocked by sexuality in some forms, and yet I draw it in all forms. I think it's really just the social rules that have been impressed on me during my childhood that make me feel that it's wrong. I don't mind having the thoughts myself. It's just letting everybody else know that I have those thoughts. What I draw in my drawings, I would not go out and do in Harrods.
Very careful. Get the gun. Get the gun. Get the gun.
I want the American people, I want you to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that during my term as president, justice will be pursued fairly, fully, and impartially, no matter who is involved. This office is a sacred trust, and I am determined to be worthy of that trust.
My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain.
Well, I have to admit, I was obsessed by Nixon. I didn't like him. But when he met his end in Watergate, I published this lament in the Sunday Times. Though Nixon makes me sick, I'll miss his every trick. His used car style and sweaty smile made him a perfect expletive deleted. Just got it in.
Richard Nixon was running for president. Not many thought he'd make it. Time magazine asked me to do a cover of him, but he refused to let me come and draw him. Time was furious. No one told them what to do, let alone who would complete their covers. We'll send you on his campaign plane as a reporter. He can't stop that, they said. So, feeling rather embarrassed, I traveled with Nixon through North Dakota, Montana, and Nevada. Everywhere we stopped, I would be in the front row drawing the expletive deleted. He was embarrassed too. Eventually he thought, if you can't beat them, join them. So he'd throw me a sweaty smile. Hi, Jerry. Are your pencils sharp today? Ha ha. This is Nixon and Lieutenant Calley, done in 1971. It was one of the many Nixons I did for the Sunday Times in the days when Harry Evans was editor.
We weren't a party political newspaper. We were trying to find an independence of view and a moral position which occasionally could express itself in the current politics of the day. What we got from you was a completely unpredictable moral statement which didn't recognize any party lines. I could never tell which way you were going to go. And it was marvelous because that kind of shaped our own feelings towards things. There are occasions in newspapers when you want to just scream. All you would like to publish is a loud scream. But you can't emit a loud scream. You can write as strongly as you can. But even then, it's still not giving vent to what needs to be said. So I think the value of somebody as outrageous, offensive, and occasionally brutally shocking as you are, is that it reaches parts of the conscience that other pieces of journalism don't.
But the sad thing is I don't think any of these things change the course of history one iota.
Don't you?
Do you?
Oh, yes, I do. I can see your drawing of Ronald Reagan, I can see it of Margaret Thatcher. I can recall to mind in a way which I once thought was peculiar to photography, but you also have it. Your drawing of Enoch Powell at a time of racial tension in Britain.
But that wouldn't have any effect on Enoch Powell. He wouldn't
wouldn't
alter
have
his policies.
Of course he wouldn't, but you have an effect on how people perceive him. It's an effect on the moral environment. But I don't think you should ever worry about having an effect.
Well, I can only think that I'm a rallying point. People might say, yes, well, that's what I was thinking or didn't know how to say. And that there is a climate of opinion, you say, created by that.
And I think
but I think really, ultimately, it's just for me to get my rocks off onto the paper. It's a kind of selfish thing.
That's right,
ultimately.
but I think you must pursue that vision. And although people like me and other editors are useful, you must in the end pursue your own impulse and drive and genius, really.